Why are electric cars less taxing on the environment than standard fuel-burning cars if you still go out and require fossil fuels to make the electricity for cars? The source of electricity itself can come from renewable sources, and depending upon where you live and where you are, it can be a significant difference. So where we are, wind, nuclear, and hydro make up something like 60% of the electricity around here. With natural gas makes up another 30%, coal's about another 10%. So instantly, there's something like a 60% reduction in carbon emissions right there. Power itself can also come from nuclear, and that doesn't have a lot of greenhouse gases associated with it. Electric cars are also more efficient in how they operate. You can reclaim energy from brakes, for example. Because of the size and the type of fuel in a car engines themselves aren't as efficient as electricity generators. Car engines are limited because they have to be very light and small, and this really reduces the efficiencies that they have. Generating electricity in a big power plant, even if it's using fossil fuels, is much more fuel efficient than the efficiencies that you can gain in a car engine. And most importantly, there are far less emissions are made when you use electricity that's generated entirely from the dirtiest coal power plants in the country, even when you compare it to power generated in your small combustion engine in a car. In terms of emissions per mile that you drive, even accounting for the cost of transmission for power plants, it's way more environmentally friendly to use electricity from dirty coal power plants than to use your own personal inefficient gas engine built into your car. A lot of internal combustion folks fail to mention the electricity that you need to use to create your gasoline. It takes something like 5 kilowatt hours to refine 1 gallon of gasoline. A big electric car, like a Tesla, can go 20 miles on the same amount of energy without burning that gallon of gasoline. So basically, internal combustion cars are already using nearly an equivalent amount of electricity that electric cars would. And on top of that, they're burning gasoline. So this level of efficiency is really difficult for the internal combustion engine to get over. Now, even if all of your power comes from the heaviest polluting coal power plant in the United States, it's still better for the environment than the electricity that's generated from a combustion engine. These are big differences. If you look at electric vehicles, they do have better wheel-to-wheel emissions than any internal combustion engine today. You get a lot of benefits from the economies of scale. Even a coal power plant that's huge, because it's huge, it allows it to be a lot more efficient than a small vehicle with an internal combustion engine. It definitely works in their favor. When you start considering other sources, like renewables or nuclear power, it only starts to look even better for the nuclear or for the electric vehicle itself. So the main issue to be concerned with is that when you're talking about this, when you're discussing mileage or wheel-to-wheel emissions or anything like that, it's the infrastructure outside that you're concerned about. In America, our electric grid itself is really old and outdated. It's patched together and on the verge of failure pretty much all the time, and it's not great here. Europe itself is a lot better off because there's a lot of destruction after World War II. In the mid-20th century, they had to rebuild a lot of their electric sources. So they built everything from the ground up instead of in America where we're slapping new bits on the old system. Switching over all at once to electric vehicles could put a really huge strain on the United States energy grid, and it probably couldn't handle that. Add on top of that problems with energy storage that renewables have, and your best bet in the future for renewable energy could come from stuff like solar and wind and hydroelectric, which doesn't have storage issues. But those things only come into play some of the time. So you got to store that energy somehow. You can't store electricity on a large scale in a very efficient form yet. So the best option really would be molten salt storage, and that's in the 40 to 50% efficiency storage range. And the last issue is the batteries themselves in these cars. In order to get decent power in an electric car, you need a really big battery. Batteries are pretty heavy, and they can perform performance in a similar fashion to a big gas tank. So an electric that's actually comparable to an internal combustion engine car isn't as light and as nimble as it's kind of made out to be. Now, you have new batteries and electric motors, and they depend on these rare earth elements. You don't have a lot of these rare earth elements, and our demand is fast outstripping our global supply. What you do have has to get shipped all over the globe before it becomes a part of your car or your phone or whatever. So pay attention to that.